Tonight, a bailout from the union. The UAW offers contract concessions to the big three car makers to keep them in business. And a tale of two plants. They look the same. Why workers in one could soon be out of a job. I'm Katie Couric. Also tonight, the nation's colleges get a great big F in affordability. A new report says skyrocketing tuition is putting higher education out of reach for more and more Americans. Using a PC instead of an MD, why getting medical advice online could be hazardous to your health. And a Yuletide dynasty, the family that makes trees to please. Go ahead, take a bow.
This is the CBS Evening News with Katie Couric.
Good evening, everyone. The men and women on the assembly lines who put together the cars we drive fought hard for all the pay and benefits they got from GM, Ford, and Chrysler. But today, their union said it's ready to give some of it back if that's what it takes to get Congress to approve a bailout for the big three and keep UAW members employed. Our national correspondent Dean Reynolds is in Detroit.
The people who actually make American cars produced a batch of contract concessions today to keep their employers in business.
The word concessions, I used to cringe at that word, but now, why hide from it?
An emergency meeting here of the United Auto Workers agreed to help their employers by modifying but not renegotiating a contract that's only a year old. They allowed the big three to delay paying their promised share into a multi-billion-dollar health fund the union will start running in 2010. Until then, though, the companies are paying medical, dental, and vision coverage to all workers as well as retirees, who outnumber current employees 3-to-1. And the union suspended the controversial Jobs Bank, in which laid-off workers receive 85% of their regular pay while idle. Some 3,500 people currently, averaging as much as $50,000 a year, and something the union acknowledges has been hard to explain.
There's a perception problem, there sure is. I don't question that.
The sensational new 1951 died.
Perks like these, negotiated decades ago when the big three were facing almost no competition, today add almost $2,000 to the sticker price of every car Detroit produces when compared to their now very real competitors. But they are very hard to give up.
Well, one of the things they do not want to do is to go back into the contract and start reducing wages and taking away other benefits.
While take-home pay at U.S. automakers now averages $28 an hour, close to what Toyota, Honda, and Hyundai pay their workers, it's the Detroit negotiated health and pension benefits that have changed the equation. Factor them in, and labor costs are $73 an hour for Detroit, but only $44 for non-Detroit producers.
Hey, buddy.
Still, talk of sacrifice lands heavily on workers like Brian Yarbrough, who bristles at the idea that his labor isn't worth his wages.
Especially, these congressmen that, they say you can go out and get another job, doing the same type of work and making half as much money. Well, I welcome them to come in and try doing some of that work.
5 years with General Motors, he wonders now whether he should ever have started.
It's hard to say. This is something that my family has done. My grandpa worked for General Motors, and so did my dad. And so this is what my family knows.
But all he and his wife Sabrina have known for the last 5 years is uncertainty.
It panics me a lot. It kind of keeps me up at night, a lot of nights.
And tomorrow, the U.S. auto industry will make its second attempt in 2 weeks to secure government financing from Congress to keep from going broke. Katie?
Dean Reynolds reporting from Detroit tonight. We want to go back now to that competition Dean just mentioned. It comes, of course, from foreign car makers. The car on the left is a Hyundai Sonata, which looks an awful lot like the car on the right, GM Chevy Malibu. The Hyundai's made in Alabama, the Malibu in Michigan. And while they're very similar cars, the cost of building them is very different, as Mark Strassman shows us now in A Tale of Two Plants.
I look for a lot of different things. 5 years ago, John Carlson put Detroit in his rearview mirror. He left Ford in Michigan for Hyundai in Alabama.
Did you see the writing on the wall?
Maybe a little bit. At this new plant, Carlson oversees it all. 1,000 Hyundais built a day, both midsize sedans and SUVs. 3,000 non-union employees, and Carlson hired them all.
Everything from the CEO down to the folks that that are putting these fender guards on. We're all in it together.
This is obviously our award-winning Malibus.
North of Detroit, Gary Malkus manages this GM plant. Union labor makes mid-size sedans. But what's really on the line? Jobs for 4,000 employees.
That we're all on pins and needles as to what's going to happen.
Hyundai's workers, including all benefits, make almost $28 an hour, less than half the typical GM union worker. One reason? Covering the needs of its retirees costs GM more than $37,000 per active worker per year. GM has 360,000 retirees. In America, Hyundai has 0. Another Hyundai advantage in Alabama, America's most automated car plant.
Hyundai has achieved in only 3 years what Detroit has struggled with for the last 30. A highly competitive combination of quality and flexibility.
When SUV sales dived, the plant built more sedans. At many GM plants, that switch would take weeks. Here,
from point A to point B probably was within a few hours.
With a major difference, these GM workers build American innovation and inspiration. Not so in Alabama.
It's really just putting pieces together that somebody else in some other country has designed and developed for us.
But in the South, 3 more foreign car makers are building new plants. Up north, GM plans to close 9 more. Scary times in Michigan.
Some people, their last day may be right before Christmas break.
American car making heading in 2 very different directions. Mark Strassman, CBS News, Montgomery, Alabama.